Hello, my name's Jade and today I'm going to be doing the end of year book tag. This book tag was created by Errol Bassett, who is another YouTuber. She's incredible. If you don't watch her videos, what are you doing? She does mostly house content now, but she also has a podcast, Books Unbound, which she hosts with Raylene, and they recently did this tag on the podcast, and I thought, I've never done that, I want to do it. By the time this is up, it's probably not their most recent episode, but I'll link it in the description along with the original video if I can find it. This is a tag where we're basically talking about the plans for the end of year reading, kind of like the mid-year book recap tag before the end of the year. Let's get into the first question. The first question is, are there any books that you started this year that you need to finish? No, but there are some books that I need to finish. There are some books that I started last year and said I'm going to finish them this year. I've read maybe a couple of pages of each. The first of which is Greek Myths, Gods and Goddesses by Jean Mingus. Jean is also a fellow booktuber. Jean's Thoughts is her channel, I'll link it below. She has two of these little Pan Macmillan editions, and there are two more coming out this year that I do really want to get. I kind of have peace with this one though, because it's such a beautiful little book and I really want to support Jean and everything she does. I was supposed to read more of it over the summer, but summer is really when I read most of my Greek mythology stuff, and I didn't end up doing that. Bummer. If I don't finish this year, it won't be the end of the world. I have full faith that I will do it at some point, and these are such beautiful little books. I'm starting to think maybe they can just be a collection in and of itself. The reason it's stressing me out is because I separate my books as read versus to be read and then I have a little pile of currently reading, and so this sitting there and like the other one sitting in the to be read pile is that's stressing me out. But maybe they just need to be their own little collection that's separate. Actually, Ariel in her dining room has a little pile of these editions, and I always think they look so beautiful, and that's something I want to do one day when I have my own space, like little piles of books here and there. So maybe I should be inspired and have my own little pile of Jean Mingus Pan Macmillan editions, because I think she's also coming out with some next year. And they all sound interesting about like wizards and serpents and dragons and stuff like that, and that's like, yeah, I want to read about that. But then the more pressing answer is Red, A Natural History of the Redhead by Jackie Collis Harvey. I started this like the summer of last year, and I'm like over halfway through it. I really want to finish this one. Like I was finding it interesting, it's just also very dry because it is what it says on the tin. It's the natural history of the redhead. We go right from like the beginning of humanity, and we find out like why ginger people are ginger, like the genetics and the social conceptions, and it delves into a really wide variety of things, and like throughout the whole time it's really in-depth and well researched and interesting. It's just a little dry. I read most of like the beginning of this on a trip, and then when I came back I like tried to keep reading it so I could finish it, and it was really slowing down my reading, so I was like, I'm gonna have to put it down. And again, I've read like maybe half a chapter so far this year. No, that's not, I read like a chapter and a half because I read some while I was at a hospital waiting. I really need to finish this one this year. I don't want to bring it to the next year. I need this to be done. Question number 2, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? Yes, I do. Most of my like end of year plans are like either autumnal or wintry feeling books. One in particular that I've been waiting for autumn to read, and that is The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. Now, I haven't read a ton of Agatha Christie's novels. I've read a few of her short stories in those like spring, summer, autumn, winter collections, and I really liked them. And I've read And Then There Were None, and I wasn't obsessed with it. I'll link to the video where I talk about that one in the description so you can see why I wasn't obsessed with it. But I really like the short stories, and I love the Poirot films, and I really want to read the Poirot, and this is the first Poirot book, if you didn't know. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I've been saving it for the autumnal season. Something about like murder mysteries just screams autumn to me. I think it's got like the spookiness of like the murder, but then like the coziness of like the mystery. Especially with Agatha Christie, like she has a certain quaintness to it. Like it still can be dark at times, don't get me wrong, but because of her writing style, it was written so long ago, there is a certain quaint, cute coziness there. And especially with Poirot, who's just like bumbling around. Hilarious. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but I've been saving it and I am excited. The next question is there a new release you are still looking forward to? Yes, there are a few. I mean, the obvious one is, as of filming this, Intermezzo still hasn't come out by Sally Rooney. That is like one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I feel like I talked about this one in the mid-year book, in the what? In the mid-year book freakout tag though. So I'm gonna mention another one. We are getting a new Scott's Very Pleasant in the end of September as well. Scott's Very Pleasant and the Haunting of Hollow House. I always want to think of like Hill House, but that's not it. If you don't know about Scott's Very Pleasant, it is a children's fantasy series. We are currently on phase 3 of that series. It's very, very long, but I've been reading them since I was a little kid and I'm just obsessed with them. They are my happy place. They are my home. The fact that it's a haunted house situation like is perfect for spooky season. I'm definitely going to read that one in October. And then speaking of October, we have January's by Olivia Blake, which I think is the one I'm most excited about right now because I just finished the Atlas trilogy, and so I'm all up in my Olivia Blake feels right now, and so I'm really glad that I have another book from her coming out this year to kind of soothe that itch for a little while. Short story collection, and I haven't read very many short story collections this year, so that's great. That's been a goal of mine to just kind of read more in general. I read loads last year and then I've read none so far this year, so that's good. Short story collection. I don't know what it's about. I have a feeling it's about love in some way, knowing Olivia Blake. Next up, what are 3 books you need to read by the end of the year? Just 3. I looked back at my goals to see how many of the books on that list, like the books that I wanted to read this year, had I actually read. A decent amount. There's only like 3-ish. 2 of them are series. So there's like 1 book and then 2 series that I haven't actually read yet, and to be honest with most of them, I'm kind of at the point that like I don't think I want to read them. I do want to read them, but I'm not in the mood. The problem is I was supposed to read them last year and I was never in the mood, so I didn't get around to them. And it feels like it's a curse. I don't know. I think for me though, when it comes to the end of the year, it does just kind of feel like you need to cut those losses because you have like limited reading time left. And it's so stupid because it overflows into next year. Like it's not actually linear like that. You can just like keep going into January. I feel the pressure of there's only so long left and there's so many books that I broadly want to read this year, even if they weren't like goals. They were like books that I've at some point or another accumulated in the back of my mind, like, oh yeah, I'll get to that by the end of this year. So I think I'm just gonna cut those losses. There is one, and again I'm kind of cheating here because it's a series, not an individual book, but it's a graphic novel series, so I think I'm gonna let it count. I mean, we can narrow it down to 1 volume if we need to. The Monstrous series by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. And this is a series that I adored. It was my favourite graphic novel series when I first read it. I haven't picked up a new volume in some years. 6 is the kind of where I stopped. I haven't read 6 yet. This is what I'm trying to say. So I think 7 is definitely out. I think 8 is either out or coming out. Like it's either 8 or 9 that we're up to by the end of this year. I think they come out towards the end of the year. So one of the goals was to reread the first 5. I've reread the first one like 100 times by now. And then catch up and be up to date with Monstrous. I think this is a very feasible goal though. Like graphic novels, catching up with them, that's something I can do. I kind of have like December in my mind like blank, so that if I wanted to, I mean, the dream is that I could just like mood read to my heart's content and don't have to like pay attention to any goals and could just have like a whale of a time. If I want to read Christmas romances all month long, I will. But for things like catching up with graphic novels, that will also be very helpful. I can do like a graphic novel a day and catch up with the series. I have my TBR books in stacks, and so I'm just having to like rifle through these stacks to try and get these books out. Next up is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This one came out earlier this year, and I just don't want to let it cut too far from me. If I have like a new big release from big author like this and it sits around, then the longer it sits, it will continue to sit for even longer. Like I need to nip them in the bud. So that's the plan with this one. I mean, it is also, I heard people say that it was good for spooky season, so I have also been saving it for spooky season. I'll probably get to this in October as well. It is a historical fiction from Leigh Bardugo. I think it's something to do with the Spanish Inquisition. It's been a while. It's been a minute since I read a Leigh Bardugo book. I'm not up to date with the Ninth House series. I have not read Hellbent. And then the last one is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I downloaded the audiobook for this one on Audible many months ago. I even have the second one on Audible. Like they came up in the sales. So then I was like, well, I should buy the first book as well, because then that will really motivate me to read it, to listen to it. And I haven't yet. So by the end of the year, I want to start this series. I've been really enjoying fantasy series a lot recently. I'm in like the mood for romance, so I actually think I might get to this one very soon. The next question is there a book that could still shock you and become your favourite book of the year? I don't think so. I think my current favourite book of the year will be my favourite book of the year, and that is largely because my favourite book of the year so far is a new all-time favourite, and they are rare, especially with the intensity, like the clarity I have around it. Like, I'm so certain that this is a new favourite for me. But if I had to speculate, if I had to guess what could potentially, if anything, could knock it down, then I do really want to get to Enlightenment by Sarah Perry by the end of the year. This is another one that came out this year. Again, these new releases that we gotta nip in the bud before they get too far away. I adored both The Essex Serpent and Melmoth by Sarah Perry. I'll link to the videos where I discuss both of them down below if you want to find out more. I thought they were both really well written and really interesting. I give them both 9s out of 10. So close to being perfect. I just didn't have the right amount of enthusiasm for them to be 10s out of 10 for me, but I do really adore both of those books, and so I am very certain that I will also adore Enlightenment. And so who knows, maybe this will be the one that like makes it to that 10 out of 10 mark. I think it's set in winter, so again I was kind of in my mind saving this for like November time. And there is another one that I don't actually know if I'm going to read this year, but I've really been craving it. The problem is it's so long that it will take me a whole month to read, and so that's a big commitment. And so part of me is thinking, just wait till January, that can be your January book. But I'm really craving it, and that is A Day, a Full Night by Samantha Shan. I had to look at my laptop to figure out what it's called because I don't know. I read The Power of the Orange Tree last November, and again it took me the whole month to read it, and I like at some point I started thinking I'll do the same with this one this year, and I don't know at what point I started thinking about that because that was never in the cards, that was never the plan. And I'm looking at all the books I want to read by the end of the year, and I'm thinking like I'm not going to get to half of these if I read this piece, but at the same time I'm really craving it. So who knows, maybe I will. I really loved The Power of the Orange Tree. I'll link to the video where I discussed that one down below. I definitely mentioned it in my favourites last year. Like, it wasn't a new favourite. I had some smaller problems with it, but on the most part I thought it was really strong, and I really loved the world, and I want to be back in this world so much. So who knows, maybe I'll read it, and if I do, maybe it's a potential new favourite. I think Enlightenment probably has the stronger chance between the two, but I also think neither of them will be. I think my favourite is my favourite, so who knows. And the last question is, have you already started making reading plans for next year? Yes, of course. A big thing that like defined my reading goals this year, which is interesting because when I look back through the list of books I wanted to read and the things I wanted to do, there's a lot of them, but I definitely wanted to be more like free feeling in my reading and read what I felt like. Before I read quite seasonally, like I thought like this is the kind of book I should read at this time of the year. And so I've been trying not to do that so much. Like, I still do it, but I definitely have been putting less pressure on myself to get the big numbers, to read the things I think I should be reading, and just read the things that I want to read. I probably still have read things that I think I should read, but with less, I haven't forced myself in the same way. So that's something I definitely want to bring into next year. Like, why are we setting these rules? I don't understand at what point this happened. I think if like I was a full-time content creator, or I don't know, if it was like attached to my job, or I had more time, then I wouldn't mind so much. But like, I just read for funsies. Like, why am I doing this to myself? And so therefore I've been trying not to make so many plans in my head. Something I have noticed this year, what I really want to do is read widely in terms of the format. Like, one of the goals I have going on for this year is to read more poetry, because poetry kind of feels like this alien thing to me. I have a literature degree, and yet I've managed to like scathe by without like barely touching poetry. I haven't really delved into poetry properly since my A-levels when I was 18. One of my goals was to read a bunch of different kinds of poetry from a bunch of different poets and see if I can find my niche, like the area of poetry that I really connect with. So like I had to go like reading 10 different poets, or like 10 different poets. We're a little bit behind, but I think I might be able to catch up. But so something like that is something that I'm very much interested in doing next year, just on a smaller scale, and I think across more. Something else I've noticed this year is I've barely read any graphic novels, and I don't know if that's because I feel like I need to be caught up on the series that I'm in the middle, like Monstrous, Something is Killing the Children, Lore Olympus, these series that I'm in the middle of, before I can like start another series, or even just reading a standalone. I don't know, because there are other series that I want to read, and I have a list somewhere of standalones that I want to read. I just haven't been doing it, and I don't know why. So it's like maybe a goal of like reading 5 graphic novels at least, and like 5 different poetry collections. Short stories, again, I read like 6 last year and I've read none thus far, but I don't want to do too high a number for that one because they are harder to find, I think, short story collections. So maybe just like 2 short story collections. Like I had a goal this year of like reading 2 classics. I think that's a really solid goal, just to make sure that like you're dipping into all these different areas that you do want to dip into, so they don't kind of like fall too far away from you. And if you think about over the course of a whole year, like 2 or 3 short story collections, like maybe 5 different poetry collections, at least 5 graphic novels, I think it's a really like achievable goal, but it's also going to hold you accountable to doing those things that you actually want to do, but without the stress. That's very much my headspace with my goals, so I definitely think setting a number on the amount of graphic novels I want to is the one that's coming first in mind, because I can't believe how few I've read this year. And that has been the end of the year book tag. I definitely have way more books that I want to read by the end of the year that I haven't mentioned, and like I said, I definitely still have some goals that I'm still not quite up to date on, but I'm feeling optimistic. I think I can do it. You'll have to come back to my 2024 wrap up favourites video to find out if I did complete those goals. I will go through the whole list and then I will break it down. But yeah, that is it for this video. What is the book that you want to read by the end of this year? What is that book that you are not going into 2025 without having read? Let me know in the comment section. That is all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful morning, afternoon, evening / night. My name's Jade. I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye!